and welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee or tea or water, whatever your pleasure, and join me for some astrology, human design, and possibly an oracle reading. Ooh, I didn't pull one yet, but we might be able to do that live. We'll see what happens with the time this morning. So thank you all for joining me this morning. It's always wonderful to be here. I don't know about you guys, but this time change is like whiplashing me because this time last week, it was really getting pretty bright at this time of the morning. It felt like I wasn't doing this in the middle of the night anymore. And then this morning, of course, we have clouds and rain and it's dark. So I feel like, oh, am I still asleep or should I still be asleep? Or is it really time to be up? I don't know. It always seems like the first few days after a time change, maybe even the first week after a time change, I get wonky or everything feels out of sorts or out of timing. I don't know why we have to still play with daylight savings time, or maybe we should just stay on daylight savings time. I don't know. But I do know that every 6 months we're getting kind of whiplashed by that time change. And so the moon for us today, still in Aquarius. And I love the moon in Aquarius. You know why? First of all, it generates for me, maybe for you as well, lots of energy. Good morning, Mimi. Good morning, Michelle. Good morning, Roseanne. I see you all out there sort of maybe listening. Good morning, Suzanne. Love you all. Glad you're here. So moon in Aquarius, great energy for generating ideas, for thoughts somehow that get outside of the box, right? That somehow become unlimited. And so today we have another full day of the moon in Aquarius, and we have access then to some of that more unique, out of the box thinking or way of being with the world. It's almost like the moon in Aquarius frees us up in some way to be able to access maybe information or ideas that otherwise we keep tightly locked up in a box. And, you know, it's kind of interesting, too, because today the moon itself in Aquarius is squaring Jupiter in Scorpio. And, you know, squares generally we think of as being challenging, right? They're challenging aspects. Well, the aspect here is challenging us to grow on the inside, change on the inside to match the potential for what can happen on the outside. And Mimi, what was that? Great moon for the students to be marching, very Aquarian. Yet, you know, this morning it occurred to me, this was way back in January or December. I was doing radio shows telling people what the energies were building for the year 2018. And I could pull out one of my books here and look back at my notes. And one of the things I said very clearly was that this is the year of the grassroots movement, of people power. It didn't occur to me then that the people might be kids, right? But it doesn't matter who they are, whether it's kids or women or minorities, even men, it doesn't really matter who it is. It's the idea that people are organizing themselves and standing up to what they feel like are the things that need to be changed. And so here we have this, what was it? The pound walkout or hashtag, I don't remember what it was now, but essentially all the schools here in Washington are doing that, where the students at a certain time, I'm not sure if it's today, I was just kind of half listening, but they're organizing a walkout where they're going to stand together for a reduction in gun violence. And to me, it's amazing because these are kids, these are the youth, these are the leaders of tomorrow, right? And they're ready to stand up for what they believe in. And it's like they're almost like they're saying, you know, politics be damned. We don't care about the politics here. We don't care about that. What we care about are our what? Core values, life, right? And I know that a lot of you out there may think that liberty and gun rights and all of that is also a part of our rights. And true it is, right? That is a part of the Constitution of the U.S. And in that, I value that, right? But I don't think that the constitutional amendment was meant for what would eventually become weapons of mass destruction. I can't imagine our forefathers not even being able to think of that far ahead. nor would they really have ever believed that shooters would take these mass weapons and take them into a school and shoot the school up. So when the NRA starts spouting all their little tirade against people trying to control their guns or take away their guns, that's their rhetoric that they're using. It's just rhetoric. It's not really true. No one's trying to take away their rights. No one's trying to take away their guns. They're trying to make it safer for the people who don't have guns or access to guns in their institutions like the school to have a safe experience. And there really isn't any need. If what you say is you need your gun for hunting, you don't use an assault rifle. We have a family of hunters. We don't use assault rifles in hunting. If you're saying that you need it for protection, then why are you able to take this gun at 18 and take it into a school and shoot it up? I mean, some things don't make sense. So what we're seeing is the people coming together, kids, adults, doesn't matter. And in fact, the teachers are also joining in, at least here in this state, and stating what they want, right? Aligning with their values. And that, my friends, is what is going to change this world, right? It's the people power. We saw what it did in Florida when the students said, this is enough, right? The Florida legislature was actually forced to make some changes to be in alignment with what the people wanted. They're our elected officials. They're there to do what we want, not do what the NRA wants. And granted, NRA is populated by people, but the NRA is only a percentage of the people, right? So interesting things happening out there in the world. So let me go back to our moon in Aquarius, squaring Jupiter. So Jupiter is benefic. It's about growth. And remember, last week she turned retrograde, meaning that instead of the outer world expression of growth and expansion, we're now doing the inner world growth and expansion, which means it's not always very visible what is going on, but it's happening, right? And we feel it viscerally within us, this growth, whether it's a growth through our processing of our old stuff, whether it is something that we're working on so in the quiet, in the solitude of our own being, maybe in meditation, maybe through prayer, it doesn't matter. That's where the growth is happening. Well, later today, the moon in Aquarius is going to be in a sextile, which is a 60-degree angle, positive energy of being able to express our gifts and our talents, right? What are our strengths and how do we emphasize those? And how do we get those things out to the world, right? If we're here to share our brilliance, our genius with the world, today is the day where somehow thinking outside of the box, looking inward, gives us access to being able to have an awakening, a revelation even about what it is we're to do in the outer world. And I had just such a creature happen to me this morning. And it's always funny because these things happen to me when I'm lying in bed just before I wake up. I mean, I was kind of awake already, but I was just laying there kind of enjoying the last few minutes of my soft, warm, cuddly bed. And this thought popped into my head. But it was a thought that was something that had been triggered by something I had seen earlier in the week, but I hadn't put two and two together yet. You know, how you notice something in your outer world, but it hasn't quite like set in as to what it means for you. And all of a sudden I had that this morning. I was like, whoa, it took me back. And it's interesting because it was something I'd been struggling with for a while. Like the idea, what I saw in my outer world was something that created an inner struggle. And not a bad struggle. I mean, sometimes struggles are just like, okay, what do I do with this? Is this something I need to look at? Is this something I just let go of and walk away from? You know, that kind of a struggle. I'm not talking life or death here. But all of a sudden, all the parts came together. And it made me go, that's what kind of day this is today, where all the parts can come together. Now, in doing that, right, it's not all easy peasy breezy, because it does mean that there is possibility of doing some work. Certainly this idea makes me have to rewrap my mind around how I'm working and what I'm working on. And there's another transit going on today for us that I want to speak to that can sometimes cause us to become inflexible. And this is a longer term transit. So let me set the stage for this one. Saturn and Jupiter are always in a 20-year or so dance with each other. So the dance that they have with one another begins when they have a conjunction, when they occupy the same degree of space. And that occurred in May 28th of 2000. That was the last conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. And that means they were conjunct at, let's see, I think it was in Taurus. Would have been Taurus. Their conjunction in Taurus then set off a 20-year cycle, which we are now coming to the end of. And we're seeing that evidenced in this particular transit, which is Saturn in a semi-square. Don't get caught up in the words yet. Saturn in a semi-square to Jupiter. Now, a square is a 90-degree angle. They're all 90-degree angles, right? If you go back to your high school, junior high school geometry, a square is 90 degrees, and a square itself is made up of 90-degree angles. Well, if we cut that square in half, the new angle is a 45-degree angle. And that's what a semi-square is a 45-degree angle between planets. Now, these two planets are in a dance that's 20 years long, right? So at some point, they came to their first semi-square, they came to their first trine, they came to their first 90-degree square, and now we're winding down. We're at the other end of that cycle because we're coming, it's 2018. We have 2 years before that cycle is over. So they're in the waning days of their conjunction. And this happens 3 times for us. It's already happened once in December of 2017. It is now happening here in March, and it will happen again in September. And after that, there's only relatively minor connections that these two planets will make to one another before they end their cycle, right? So what are we faced with then in this 45-degree angle? Because even in your own natal charts, you have 45-degree angles, quite possibly. They're harder to point out because, we see those red lines. We see those, if you look at this, we see the red lines, which are 90-degree angles. We see those blue lines, which are 120-degree angles. You might see some of the dashed lines, which are 150-degree angles. But really, the semi-square is hard to see in there, so it doesn't automatically call our attention to it. So I'm going to call your attention to some things here about this because, one, think about the nature of these two planets. Saturn is about structure and form. It is really about the due diligence that we have to do, setting goals, following action steps, and sort of towing the line, staying within boundaries even. I hate that, but it's about boundaries, right? It's about staying the course. Jupiter, on the other hand, is bigger than that. Jupiter is expansive in nature, and it wants to go beyond the boundaries. It's busting out of limits and boundaries. So just the nature of those two planets already kind of puts them at odds, right? One wants you to stay the course and focus, and the other one says, get bigger, expand. And so there's a tension already between these two planets. Ultimately, when we're able to work with the energy of these two planets, what we see is a stability in growth and a forward momentum with that growth, albeit that growth sometimes with these two planets involved is 2 steps forward and 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but ultimately you're still always 1 step forward. All right. So now let's take it to the 45th degree, or 45th angle, or 45 degrees. And someday, by the way, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to have to learn this first before I can bring it to you. But all of these different connections that planets make have a harmonic associated with them. Now, I'm not familiar with harmonics with the exception of maybe the musical quality of the energies. But in astrology, often I hear this is the 5th harmonic or this is the 8th harmonic. So I want to look that up because I think that might be something interesting for us to incorporate into our knowledge of astrology. So when we're dealing with this 45-degree angle or this semi-square, what it brings up into us is a place where we are inflexible, right? Where we've got our, what do we call them? Our sacred cows, perhaps? That's a saying that means, something that we're relatively incapable of letting go of, or what we thought we couldn't let go of. And so often these become the places where we get rutted or where we're stuck. And if we choose to give up our sacred cow and become a little more flexible rather than inflexible, then the change in the energy dynamic could cause us to grow, right, and expand. It takes us beyond where we've been stuck. However, this pathway requires us to take a step-by-step progression. We can't take shortcuts. Now, I know that goes against what you manifesting generators out there do by nature. You're shortcut takers, and you are able to do that in your type, but sometimes what you find out is that you have to go backwards because you missed a step. If that shortcut, I always, with manifesting generators and generators, I always think of that fable of the hare and the tortoise and the hare. The generator is the tortoise, taking deliberate step-by-step action, getting to the end, to the finish line, where the rabbit jumps out, takes a rest, jumps back, goes backwards, teases the turtle, goes back forward, and ultimately they get to the same place. The manifesting generator sometimes gets to that place and realizes they got to go backwards, and they got to pick up a step that maybe they passed, or they took a shortcut and they should have taken the long cut. The generators, though, are deliberately step-by-step moving forward, and ultimately they get to the same place. But what I'm saying here is, in the confines of these two planets right now, taking shortcuts is not going to be beneficial, right? Take the deliberate road. If you're making changes in your life right now and you're able to get past your sacred cows, then you've got to take deliberate steps forward. And I'm going to give you an example of a sacred cow. What was it, last week, I think, I have a client who is learning feng shui. She's excellent at it already. I mean, she is so right on her path. And she offered to do a feng shui report for me on my house. And when it got to this part of my house, which is my bedroom / office, she was very clear about some changes that needed to be taken place here in this room. Exactly, like I have to take this office area here and move it over there, and then move the bed and everything over here. Well, I was triggered, like almost immediately triggered, because my sacred cow is that I believed from old feng shui or something. Good morning, Michelle Brooks. That to be in alignment with a door at night when you're sleeping was bad energy. Well, it turns out that was a sacred cow. That wasn't even the truth. It might be the truth in some floor plans or some houses, but in my house, it's exactly the best place for me to get the best night's sleep. And that wall is the best place for me to be conducting business in my house. So here's what I had to square with. Janet, you're going to have to move this, because the things that she's telling you in this report that will go wrong if you don't do this are the exact things you're already experiencing. Although she did not know this, right? The fact, one, on that wall, I don't sleep very well at night. In fact, I toss and turn. I'm always hot. I'm cold. I'm just not as comfortable. Some nights I can't fall asleep, or I fall asleep and then I wake back up. And I've always been a really good sleeper until we moved into this house. I might think it's hormones or something like that if it wasn't happening in coincidence with me moving here. But that's what happened. So my little sacred cow is, I need to come over here to this wall. And the other thing that she said is, with my office on that side, it's much more financially viable. Well, what else do you think happened once we moved here? Suddenly, my business shot up initially. That was probably because of work that I had been doing before that. But then it went like on this nosedive. She did not know that. But she's telling me energetically that wall is going to provide financial flow. So guess what? I'm giving up a sacred cow. I really don't want to have to move my room around because, oh my God, this desk weighs a ton. That bed is a king size bed. Is it really going to fit on this wall? And how am I, blah, 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 blah. My mind going 100 miles an hour. To be sure, that is me being inflexible. And now I'm going to be flexible. I'm going to say, hey, what's it going to kill me if I try it? If it works, yay. If it doesn't work, I'm not any worse off than I was to start with, except the time it took for me to make the change. Okay. So what we come to then is, Roseanne, I love you. So what we come to then is this other idea of discipline. Oh, you're going to love this one, Roseanne. Discipline versus freedom. Discipline versus freedom, right? freedom that recognizes boundaries and limits, right? Jupiter would like to have no limits, no boundaries. Saturn says, but you've got to stay in your boundaries, right? If you don't have a plan and you don't stick to the plan, how are you going to get where you want to go, right? Jupiter, on the other hand, is just all out there. It's a gas giant, right? And what does gas do? It expands, it breathes, it expands, and it has this energy of, kind of growing and expanding. In your human body, by the way, growth unchecked is cancer or is a tumor, right? So Jupiter unchecked is not a good thing. So we definitely need our Saturn discipline and boundaries and limits in order to be able to have the growth moving in a direction that's beneficial to us. So the long story short here is this. For the foreseeable next couple of weeks, while Jupiter and Saturn are doing this little dance of 45 degrees, we are faced with some sacred cows, some places in our lives where we've become inflexible and where we're going to have to put some conscious attention in order to make the changes that we know are going to be good for us, right? There's nothing worse than knowing that someone's right about the feng shui of your room and then being inflexible and saying, nope, I'm not changing it. That's me being hard-headed, by the way. So don't be so hard-headed. Let go of some of those things that you believe are the only way things can be and open up to the change. The next time we face this is in September. And that'll be like I said, the last major contact those two planets make before they start their new cycle together in Aquarius, in December of 2020. Actually, on the winter solstice of 2020. The winter solstice of 2020. So, God, that's only about 2.5 years away. And that's going to be profound. I did do a radio show once about that coming energy, because to me, it's very profound. It's profound because we already know that, our next age is the age of Aquarius. And I really believe that Saturn and Jupiter in a conjunction there are setting off the watershed moments. The next 20 years from 2020 to 2040 are going to be the huge changes that we've been waiting for. And right now it's like we're just untying the pieces, right? That we're letting loose of some of the ties that bind in order to be able to bust out and get into that new paradigm. Now, is that going to be easy? I don't know. I don't want to characterize it as difficult, but, look at how difficult things are right now. Look how chaotic things are sort of right now. That's in just the untying phase. Once we bust through, there's that, is it the 100th monkey? I don't know if that's a theory or if that's been, anyway, there's this 100th monkey theory, let's call it, that when a population reaches a certain point, in this one instance, it was the 100th monkey, then the entire population follows suit and does what the new paradigm suggests be done. So I would have guessed that we'd been to that paradigm shift or that 100th monkey shifting point a long time ago, but apparently we're not. And does it come in January or the next 20 years? I think, yes, it does. And we begin to live a different way. What did she say? My eye is poked. Why is your eye poked, Roseanne? But if it benefits you, yes. I'm just looking through the comments real quick. You guys are awfully silent out there today, or either that or I'm just talking too much. Wow. So let's see. A quick reminder. Moon is void, of course, tomorrow morning. It's a short one. It's from 3:32 a.m. to 6:12 a.m. for you folks on the East Coast. And us on the West, midnight-ish, midnight 30 to 3:12. I like it when the void of course moon happens when I'm asleep, because then I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to remember, oh yeah, don't do this. Don't start something new here. So moon is void of course. After that, it moves out of Aquarius and then into Pisces. And that begins its run up to the new moon on Saturday. So here's something I forgot to tell you. On Friday, I won't be on air because I'm going to Seattle with my daughter and granddaughter to do a photo shoot for her modeling career. And I am just so excited to be able to go and watch this process. And so we have to leave about 7:30 in the morning. That's too early for me to really come on air. So I won't be with you. So probably Thursday night, Thursday afternoon, I'll write something up for us because we'll have the weekend in front of us then. So I'll let you kind of know what's going on for the weekend. But know right now the new moon is on Saturday at 6:12 a.m. Pacific time. And that makes it, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 East Coast time. And the new moon is going to set off this new, well, today I think we're pretty much closing up. Tomorrow, I think I'll spend the time talking to you. Look at this. These are, you can see, these are at least 6 contacts that the new moon is making on one day, one moment in time. And there's probably more. I just copied down the 6 most important ones from my little, astrology cheat sheet here. And some of them are pretty powerful. And one of them is the galactic center. Wow. Galactic center involved in the new moon. I like that. So we're in receipt of some pretty powerful energies coming into this new moon. And I think it really sets us up for some really good things. Last announcement here. Remember, a couple of weeks back, I talked to you about this woman who had reached out to me. She was an astrologer in the state of Georgia. And she was, what did she say? She was the first ever licensed astrologer in the state of Georgia, which drew me up because I thought, what does she mean by licensed astrologer? And the first one ever allowed in the state of Georgia. I was like, do you mean that before that point in time, you couldn't be an astrologer in the state of Georgia? So I wanted to talk to her. Not only that, but she had written a book about magic. The name of the book escapes me for the moment, but I downloaded it to my Kindle last night, so I'll be reading that book before we meet with her. So next Thursday, the 22nd, so you can put it on your calendars if you'd like. I would love it if you would all follow the Zoom link this time. And if you're prepared to be visible, be visible. I may let everybody be visible, so we'll have like this group dynamic going on so that I can introduce you to Maxine. And we can talk to her and pick her brain about the things that she sees. She does a really interesting report monthly called Trumpology. And in that, she talks about the astrology between the US and Trump, and whether it supports what's happening in the world or whether it's, pointing to his impeachment or whatever it is. And I listened to a couple of those yesterday, and they were pretty interesting, right? Pretty interesting. So she has an interesting take on what's happening. She comes from not politics or her beliefs, but she comes from truly what's happening in the stars and how is that showing up. And it is the day that the retrograde begins. Thank you very much. And so it'll be fun to have her on the show. So next week, I will send out a link for Zoom. So remember, it's going to make you register for it. Don't panic. Just register for it. And then on Thursday morning at 8 o'clock, instead of going to Facebook just to watch, you could still do that if you'd like. But instead of doing just that, click on the link, follow it, and it'll open up into Zoom, where if you are ready to be seen, we can all sort of have a chat together. It'll be kind of fun. See, right now, I love this format because I can chat with all of you, but I can't really see your faces, right? I know what your faces look like because I can see sort of your, like Suzanne, your face is on your, must be your cover picture or your profile picture. Mimi has a beautiful painting in her profile picture, but this way in Zoom, we can all see each other's faces, including Maxine, and I think she would love that. And yesterday, for those of you who are astrologers out there or who, know enough of astrology, it's almost like, how, this is too funny. I can't even believe I'm going to say this, but how dogs sniff each other's butts when they meet each other? Astrologers do the astrology example of that by like checking out, hey, what's your sign? Where's your moon? Where's your sun? So yesterday, she and I discovered we're both Geminis. Her destiny sits in conjunction of Mars and Uranus in my second house. my rising sign is 26 degrees Cancer, which is where her Jupiter, Mercury, and something else is. And I mean, I was like floored by all of this, right? She's just going through, and I'm going through mine, and we find that we have lots of common connections. So it's almost like we were meant to meet at this point in time in our lives. And she's definitely a little bit older than me, but certainly I want to pick her brain, right? And I want you all to be able to ask her questions and interact with her as well. So I hope you'll do that for me on the 22nd, and I'll talk to you more about it next week. In the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Moon's still in Aquarius. Take total advantage of that quirky energy today, because we lose it after the day is over. We lose it in the morning, tomorrow morning. And I love you all. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye.